And welcome back to Mixed Media Live. It is another happy Mixed Media Monday. I love saying that. That's such a good name. I have no idea why I didn't think of that to begin with when we changed our time to Mondays. But we're only slightly late today. And I think I said that last week, and then the internet cut out during that statement over here, which was quite the time. Then we came back at like 9:20 to a dead audience, which is completely understandable. But hopefully this time this doesn't happen. So welcome aboard to all you mixed media fans. We've got another set of awesome topics coming for you from all three of us. And if you don't know, Mixed Media is a live podcast happening every Monday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. And what we basically do is we talk about anything art related, particularly in our fields of interest. So whether it be music, gaming, filmmaking, and everything basically broadly related to those things at all is fair game. Sometimes we're reacting to hot takes, etc., etc. Now, if you're listening to this in post, which is the most likely way that you're listening to this is in some sort of podcasting form, we do have a YouTube, a Twitch, and a Rumble, which is all platforms that you can see us streaming live whenever we go live. So I suggest you go in the description, link in the description right there. Go and check out the links there where we have links to our channel, etc. Because it's a fun time interacting with people live, and you get to be part of the podcast, so to speak. So that's pretty cool. And for those of you who are watching live, if you didn't know, we have a podcast version of this show because it is a podcast. So you can go to the link in the description and check out mixedmediapodcast.com, where you can see all the places, roughly, which is pretty much everywhere, that you can subscribe to our podcast on pretty much all podcasting platforms. So without further ado, I guess we'll introduce ourselves. So my name is Irving Nestor. I'm a filmmaker and media entrepreneur, and I own a company called AWR.
Hi, I'm Ben Costello. I'm a flute player and a media composer.
I'm Nathan Nestor. I'm a game developer and 3D modeler.
Sweet. And before we go along, I just want to give a shout out again to 909 Crime and Rob Sharma, both people who are supporting us on Locals right now. And you can join them by going to mixedmedia.locals.com. I was going to get to this in last week, a whole segment that was related to, and then we didn't get to it because the internet cut out, and then we started late, and we ended up covering only one topic. So hopefully in the future, I'll talk more about stuff that will be happening on the Locals page, sort of related to it, in terms of some exclusive content that you can find there. There's that. So go to mixedmedia.locals.com to check out the perks that you can find. I'll flash it on the screen for a second. There they are. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. Including this live whiteboard over here. So, thank you to our supporters. I guess we'll, how was your guys' weeks? What's been going on?
I got a new few items. I have a book called, you can't really see the title, but it's there, like in black on a black background. I don't know why I did that, but it's called Mastery. The version online that I saw had like yellow text or something like that, or like orange, which would make sense given that the background's black. But this one has it's like a matte black text on a glossy black background, so you can kind of see if you turn the book and look at the reflections. I don't know why I did that. It kind of bothers me, but it's about like finding your passion and becoming a master in your craft. I'm not very far into it. I'm like 37 pages in. That's not because I haven't been reading a lot. It's like I'm reading it a lot, and then I end up like reading a section and having to think about it for like a good bit of time, and then continuing and so on. I also bought this. I was right here actually. Wow, this nice skateboard helmet so that I don't die. So it was that. And then I got new skateboard wheels because the ones that I had with the skateboard that I got didn't really fit my purposes. So, and now it rolls a lot better now, so that's cool. And that's pretty much all I've been doing.
Yeah, I guess, for me, obviously missing last week, finishing up the semester, year one of my master's. So it's nice to have a little bit of a break. As I talked about a couple of weeks ago, I also had that opportunity to get into an actual recording studio, play flute and piccolo, and some those conditions that I talked about, right? Modern studio recording techniques. And if you're interested in that, watch that video, which I'm not sure whether that's up yet or not, but if it's not up, should be up soon. Yeah, it's nice to have some firsthand experience on the player side with some of those things, and the difficulties of are that I mentioned are only exacerbated, I think, if you're playing with people who aren't at like the absolute highest level too. That's my main takeaway from it. All those things I mentioned, the difficulties, they're all there, but I think they're only magnified more when you don't have people who are like not only used to the stuff, but like are the best at what they do. That minimizes some of these problems. You create a whole set of other issues if you have people who aren't like quite at the highest level of their craft. You have like when you're listening to like pre stuff, the violins have already recorded, but they're not in tune. Like, well, do I play in tune, or do I try and match them? That kind of stuff. So yeah, but definitely a really interesting and rewarding experience for me.
Sweet. Yeah, that sounds really cool. Out of curiosity, was it for like what sort of media was it for?
So this is, I guess, just generally for like a album music that these student composers in my school are doing. So.
Oh, that's really cool. That's really neat.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, for me, if you notice the mixed media Discord randomly populating, those are a lot of my interns. So if any of you are watching, hello. We've yet to have our first meeting, but I have finally nailed down the final list. And I was expecting to have 4 or 5 people on the team, and more people said yes than I expected. That's for sure. So there's about 10 people on the team, but I'm not going to be mad at that. I mean, that's pretty cool. That some people had other opportunities and decided to go this way. So I appreciate that at the bottom of my heart, actually. So that's awesome. One way that'll be really awesome is helping get this podcast going, because it's been really difficult. Another piece of thing that's happened in my personal life is I'm moving to Pennsylvania, so there's like a huge time suck into trying to purchase a home. Probably end up being some content about that on my YouTube channel, which also the interns will also help me revive. So it's going to be a good time, I think. Overall, I'm hopeful. Let's see what else is happening. Let's see. Oh yeah, and then I want to say, last episode I was supposed to do a segment on what was it on again? Oh yeah, should filmmakers start an LLC? And then I didn't get to it because of our technical issues. But I will be getting to it next time. Next time I have a topic, I will get to it then. And one interesting lead into that is I will be doing weekly seminars with my interns about something entrepreneurial. Who knows? I'll let them vote on this sort of topic. But whatever I end up doing there, I'm going to record and I'm going to put on the locals page. So that was like the gist of how that was going to lead into a pitch, essentially. So that'll be some exclusive content for people on there if they want to check that out and learn some more granular detail about some random topic about how to better yourself as an artist in the marketplace. So there you go. Yeah, that's pretty much it for me. How about news? Any news out there?
There's some pretty big news. So one, the QA company, QA for a video game company, Raven Software, has had its employee unionized, which is the first sort of major unionization in the video games industry. And what's, I guess, makes this, a kind of a big deal is that Raven Software does QA for Activision Blizzard. And so Activision Blizzard has made, I think it was like 1,000 of their QA employees has raised their salary to $20 an hour, which for QA sounds like a pretty good deal. So, yeah. And especially, I would, I mean, it makes you wonder whether they'll just eventually just cheap out and then outsource it to like some other country, probably, and just do it cheaper there or something like that, which will kind of backfire on Raven Software, right? It's like, oh yeah, let's try to, perhaps rightfully get better working conditions or whatever it is, and then in the end, it's just like your working conditions are too expensive, someone will do it for cheaper, kind of thing. So I guess we'll have to see about that. Second thing, which is probably significantly bigger, is that EA is looking to be acquired by something. Supposedly.
Whoa, I hadn't heard about that. That's crazy that missed my radar. Wait, go
yeah. Supposedly, they've been talking to Apple, Amazon, and Disney about this. Right now, the company has not released any official statement, or I think they've explicitly said they refuse to comment on the situation. Let's see, EA spokesperson said the company would not comment on, quote, any rumors and speculation relating to M&A, which I think is merging and acquisitions. So, yeah, I don't know. I went to find out like the source of this rumor, right? Like, because the rumor seems perhaps to be credible given that so many different things have echoed it, right? So I went to like go to the source of it. That leads me to an article that pay to look at. So like it's like, all right, I can't. I don't actually know. So I can't tell you how credible it is, but it's a possibility.
Wow, that's interesting. Let's see, in the film world. Oh yeah, so I didn't notice anything particularly interesting leap off the screen. I also didn't particularly look into it for this episode because I've been super busy. But one thing that is generally speaking happening, and I always do these sort of like mini economic updates, but I'm completely out of all investing, so I guess in one way that makes me less credible, and one way that makes me more credible, depending on how you think about it, I guess. I don't know. I'm completely out of it because I need the cash to buy a home, and I'm buying the home at the top of the housing market, which is a horrible but necessary prospect because I need some place to live. So, it is what it is. If you're a buy and hold home investor, you'll understand that that's not necessarily the worst situation. That's a story for another day. But generally speaking, S&P 500 is tanking. And if you paid attention to Mixed Media Live like 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago or something like that, I said that Bitcoin was magically following the S&P 500, and I found that very disturbing. And one of the reasons I completely exited the crypto space, because things were unnaturally following the S&P 500 all of a sudden, and I was like, that's not a good thing. I didn't understand why, and that made it even worse because I don't understand why. And then so I exited, and it would have behooved you to have done the same, since multiple things have happened. I think that might be related or may not be. There was the Terra Luna sort of scandal with Terra Luna sort of desyncing with the US dollar, which was inevitable with really horrible pegged currencies like Terra Luna, but unfortunately accounted for way too much of the market. And the other thing that I think might have been happening, this complete conjecture because I haven't done the requisite research because I haven't had to because I'm out of the market, but the reason why Bitcoin and other cryptos might have been following the S&P 500 is because it might have been slightly, a little bit easier for big institutions, what we call whales, right? It might have been slightly easier for whales to leverage crypto versus their stocks or bonds. So it might have been a little bit easier for them to get loans against crypto than stocks and bonds. So what they might have been doing is leveraging their crypto assets in order to speculate on stocks. So if that makes sense, so they'd borrow against their crypto assets to go ahead and buy some stocks, which happening at a high enough level might force crypto to follow the S&P 500 pattern ahead of time, which is what it was doing. So there you go. That's a whole random technical thing. And the only other piece of news is something I haven't talked about at all. It's like something that's taking over YouTube and the internet as a whole, which is the sort of Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial. I haven't talked about it at all because the whole thing is not related at all. It's pretty much just exclusively like celebrity drama, and I don't really do that in terms of topics on the show. However, there was a bit. I do follow the case because I find court cases fascinating. If you didn't know, I that's where I get I don't watch all court cases. I read court documents most of the time, but I find court proceedings very interesting. And maybe in another life, I would have been a lawyer. But watching the trial, there are a few interesting business things that were mentioned today. And Amber Heard was there was a expert testimony on Amber Heard's behalf that was basically saying how much she was worth, how much damages she might have incurred by her countersuit, her defamation suit against Johnny Depp. So she's alleging that there's a statement made by a representative, although that's even in contention whether that person's a representative of Johnny Depp, that defamed her and caused some damages because it made her lose some contracts. I'm not going to get into the details of that. However, the interesting business portion is how this expert was trying to assess the damages. And what they were doing was they were saying that there were comps, right? So comps are just comparable things, right? So when I look at houses to potentially, 2-unit houses where I could rent out a unit, I might look at comps of similar type properties in the area, and then I say, okay, the rent on this property is this, so I probably could get rent to be that, at this very similar, probably not identical, but very similar property. So she was doing like a comp comparison of Amber Heard and other actors to try to assess what kind of money her career was going to generate in the future. Very sort of speculative concept, and it's not a very good argument, but the interesting thing was who the comps were. So the comps were, let's see, we have Gal Gadot, Chris Evans, Jason Momoa, who was her co-lead in not co-lead, I shouldn't say that, who was the lead in Aquaman, and we have maybe a few other people I'm forgetting off the top of my head. But we had a bunch of interesting people named as comparables. And if you know anything about, the kinds of films that the respective parties are in, Gal Gadot being literally Wonder Woman, in the 2 Wonder Woman films. And you have Chris Evans being Captain Kirk, which this expert didn't know, by the way, that Chris Evans was Captain Kirk in Star Trek, which I thought was hilarious. And you have Jason Momoa, who was the lead in the same very movie, on all the posters, that kind of thing, being comped alongside those people, I thought was hilarious. So, I thought some people might get a kick out of that, because certainly that comparison's ridiculous. So, there you go. That's my news.
Yeah, and I guess quickly in music, we have 2 things related to Blade Runner. The first, more business aspect of things, is that Johan Johansson, the very popular composer who died very young a few years ago, he wrote a score for Blade Runner 2049, 2049, 2047, something like that.
2049.
So 2020, I got that right. Okay. Though his score didn't end up getting used in that film. And his estate has announced, actually in the same day, I believe, as what happened for our next piece of news, they announced that they were going to be releasing and selling the score to that, the unused score, which apparently nobody knows what it sounds like, as an NFT, and how exactly they plan, what that is, they didn't release any details of what that exactly means. How is it purchasable? And it's supposed to be multiple parts. I don't know what that means, but it sounds like they're exploring the NFT space with his music. So it might be anyone who's interested in NFTs and NFTs in music in particular, something to keep an eye on. And I believe on the same day, we learned of the death of Vangelis, the enormously important film composer. So he died on the 17th at the age of 79. Composer of Greek origin who later settled in France and then in England, and really, really important for the film scoring world. Most well known, I think, in the general public for his first film score, which is Chariots of Fire, 1981. Pretty remarkable film scoring debut. Won the Academy Award, the Oscar Award, beating, I believe, Raiders of the Lost Ark that year. And that's, a very broadly popular film score. The next year, he did the score for Blade Runner, the original Blade Runner. And the director, Ridley Scott, I believe, right? Is he the director of that? Called it the heart and the soul of the film. Maybe less well known as a score in the public imagination, but in the film score world amongst composers, is kind of comparable. There's this phenomenon in the classical music world, world of classical composers, that people tend to, people are inspired by a lot of things, but the general rule of thumb is that if you ask a composer what piece got them into composing into classical music, it's either going to be Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, more classical end, or the Rite of Spring, a more modern end. And I think we kind of have a parallel of that in film music. You ask most composers what pieces, what film scores got them inspired, to enter the film music space. The answers tend to be the original Star Wars, and Blade Runner, as we got the classic big orchestral score and the monumental synth sound of Vangelis. He did a lot of interesting things, creating his own synth so he could play multiple synthesizers at the same time. But he's most known, I think, for crafting these really monumental synthesized textures that still emphasize melody, which is not something we necessarily see today, even in his kind of descendants. So as a confession, I have seen Chariots of Fire, but I have not seen Blade Runner. So that is my first film that I want to watch over this summer. So
cool. Yeah, once you watch it, definitely tell us what you think in the Discord, because I'll be interested. Sweet. That's it for news. If you're listening to this in post, this is the end of the segment for you. But Ben is going to be talking about a particular piece that I just realized I need to bring into my live editor, so I'm going to do that in a moment. But Ben will be talking about that piece, so keep your ears out and your subscriptions hot for that release. That'll be happening soon after this video is released. So with that, let's start our first segment. So here we go.
Mixed Media Music.
All right, welcome to Mixed Media Music. Today we will be doing another review of a piece of music, something that, again, if you've watched these segments before, I like to find pieces of music. I often find them on our composer on Reddit, but there are other places to look for them too. And I try and find music that stands out to me. Also, typically things that I often pull things that I like, but I haven't generated a whole lot of comments either. So today we're going to be listening and talking about a piece called "Serenade for the Sky" by Lucas Sparrow, and I assume that's your name. And yeah, so this is an interesting piece. We're gonna get into it here in a second. My first question for our composer, which if he is still in the chat, is the bird on? So if anyone doesn't know, I'm a huge bird person, bird watcher, birder. So it's a little unclear to me from the image because it's not very large. But it kind of looks like the image of Birdsong Studios is a house sparrow. Is that correct? Or I'm going to just, if it is or not, I don't know. I'm gonna hope that it's something like a Eurasian tree sparrow and not a house sparrow, but it is what it is. If it's a house sparrow, male house sparrow. I say that because house sparrows in America are an invasive species that they're not aggressive in England, but when they came over to America, they suddenly became very aggressive and like to destroy the nests of other birds so they can take over their nest. So, okay.
Here we go. Unmute myself. There we go. Out of my ignorance, are these like the little brown birds that are in cities mostly that like to be in city trees, or am I thinking of something completely different?
Oh, Irving, they're everywhere. So
Okay.
the problem was, so they came over to America when there's this brilliant gentleman in sometime in the late, I think like 1880s, who decided that America needed at least one of every bird that is mentioned in Shakespeare. So he had to bring over all these birds, and from I think like one or two, obviously more than one because you have to reproduce. But I think like two, house sparrows. They become ubiquitous. They don't die. They just, their population grows. They go everywhere and anywhere. They are literally, you walk outside, you're going to hear a house sparrow.
But nothing goes ahead and eats them? Like, they're so tiny.
Oh, sure. But you can't control them. You cannot beat them. Nothing can in America. Okay, so bird rant aside. Okay, so we're going to listen to a little bit of this piece before we talk about it. And what's interesting, a couple interesting things about it before we get started. So this is for an unusual ensemble, as described in the post by the composer. It's scored for double wind quintet plus a couple extra instruments. So a wind quintet is or woodwind quintet, depending on what you want to call it. It's a bunch of wind instruments. So normally, what that means, in a classical sense, is we have a flute, oboe, clarinet, bassoon, so all the main orchestral woodwinds, and then a French horn, providing kind of a brass sound and bass sound to the texture. And that works because horn is kind of in this, because of its sound and it's the design of its bore, it's kind of in this realm that's kind of somewhat in between like the heavy brass, like the trumpets and trombones, and in the softness of the wind. So it kind of blends in between. So it works with all these woodwinds. Okay, so this piece is composed for double of that. So two of all those instruments plus tuba, interesting choice, and plus a percussionist. It's also notable that this is the first piece that we've reviewed on this show that has a live recording, which is really awesome. Nothing wrong with your computer and your virtual instruments playing your music, but I think every composer, you're really living or for the moment when your music actually gets performed by live people. And just checking out Birdsong Studios channel, looks like you got several pieces that have been performed live, which is really awesome. If you're getting people to perform these things and record them, again, that's what kind of the dream of any composer. I think it just, if you're not a musician, just from a composer's point of view and a musician's point of view, it just breathes life into what you're doing to have people do it, right? And the best electronic sounds in the world don't quite match the kind of dynamism, I suppose, of what humans do together. So yeah, why don't we start off, listen to a little bit of this piece. We're not going to listen, I don't think we have time to listen to the whole thing. We can get a sense of Serenade for the Sky.
Here we go. And, oops, sorry. I have to unmute it. There we go.
You can probably stop it around there, Irving. Okay. It's hard for me. I'm kind of roughly guessing where we're stopping, because if you're listening live, the routing we have to do for this virtual live stream podcast gets kind of wacky with when he plays music, and it's very often what I hear. So I'm roughly guessing, but I think we got through most of the main stuff. And yeah, I think the form is kind of interesting. My overall impression, I didn't really dig into the form of the piece, but my overall impression is kind of like an A, B, C, A sort of. And it's probably not exactly what it is, but it's kind of my overall like impression, just kind of like listening and not really digging into it, which is not necessarily standard, but I don't think it's a problem to have something that's not quite binary or ternary. I think it's effective anyway. So I'm going to lead with a couple of questions, maybe somewhat rhetorical. You're welcome to answer if you, in the chat if you would like, and I will read it. But also if it can just be rhetorical questions. So my first question when I listened to this is, why is this a serenade? I don't mean that like in any critical way, and I don't, you know. And again, it's kind of a rhetorical question. My question, I guess, is kind of for myself. Like, what defines a serenade? I'm thinking of all sorts of things that are, called serenades throughout music. Like ostensibly, the definition of a serenade is a love song. So love song for the sky, I suppose. Particularly, often a nocturnal kind of song, but not necessarily. You can have like really lovely tune, Sunrise Serenade, by Glenn Miller and Glenn Miller Band. So it's generally kind of a love song. And so an interesting title. I'd be curious to know what your inspiration for the title itself was. And like I mentioned, the instrumentation is kind of an unusual choice. And I'll kind of talk about that a little bit in a second. But my kind of rhetorical question there, along with that, is what in such an ensemble, what does the role of each instrument become? Because I think the general roles in a wind quintet are somewhat defined. We have like a lot of treble voices, but flute on top. Oboe kind of, underneath of that, with a little bit more bite at the lower end. Clarinet kind of also can play really high, but kind of fills in a little bit mellower middle voice. And bassoon kind of can be melodic as well, but it's kind of bringing up the bass in the woodwind portion of it. And the horn kind of acts as not only the brass, but also kind of the bass voice along with the bassoon. So I guess I wonder when I listen to this is in such an ensemble where we have percussion, which is a good color, but when you're doubling all these instruments and you have a real bass instrument and a tuba, how does that shift like the roles of the wind quintet? Or is this really just kind of a chamber wind ensemble, or we're just missing saxophones and trombone and trumpet? So that's kind of my question when I listen to this. So there are a lot of really fantastic things.
Looks like Birdsong has replied to you. So he says, serenade is a song sung in the open air. At least that's the definition I go by. The piece is meant to feel like it's in the open air. Running out of text. Yeah, running out of text in the YouTube chat, I think.
yeah, that happens. Okay, yeah, so that makes sense. I think I tend to focus on the romantic aspect of serenade, but that definitely makes sense. And I think, as I was going to say here in a second, to me, you definitely have a sense of like expansiveness and sky in there. So that's what you're going for. Absolutely works for me. Okay, so some other things I really like about this. It's definitely looks like idiomatic writing for all the instruments, which again, if you're new to the show, we talk about idiomatic writing, but what that means is that each individual part, for each instrument, each player, is something that works naturally on the instrument. The players are naturally going, it works with what the instrument's capable of and what they're trained to do. It's not kind of asking them to do things that are too strange or too challenging. or that or you're just not asking a clarinet to sound and do things that a bassoon is better at doing. But, okay, so that will be idiomatic writing. So I call that instrumentation. Great instrumentation. I think overall the orchestration works for me. I really love the percussion augmenting this kind of double wind quintet plus tuba, or if you want to think of it as like a condensed like chamber wind ensemble. I think if your percussion really adds a lot of color and adds exactly what this piece needs. So really awesome use of the percussion. I love it. Yeah. So I think you also did a good job of drawing a lot of this stuff out in the performance. I'm assuming that this is performance. You got some of your friends together to record this, and I am also going to imagine that you or someone else conducted it. Probably too many players to comfortably go conductorless. Yeah. Some things that really stood out to me musically. I really loved the horn melody in Measure 30. I think that like where we're coming from, like the moment it arrives, that's really, really effective. Wonderful transition. I think it just like the texture opens up with that melody. Really wonderful melody. I can't get enough of that. It's really, really wonderful, and just also again not just it itself, but like the way it comes out from the kind of A section of your piece. The harmonic shift, the choice of the horn with the tuba underneath of it. I love that. And I also like how you kind of develop that idea at Measure 46 with the wind. It's not quite the same, but we're kind of playing with the melody. I think that's also really effective. And some other things I really like. I love the sense of motion. You're definitely writing, I think, in some ways that, especially when you just have like one player on a part, ways that I think good wind quintet writing works, of creating like this sense of harmony and melody, and then also kind of forward motion that you get when you have a larger ensemble and have more parts in there. I think you're doing a really good job of that, keeping the forward momentum with like static 16th notes, or like underneath the melody at 30 the tuba has these kind of triplets going on. I think that really propels the thing forward. And along with that, I love these kind of inner parts that, I don't want to describe this. They're like, I'm not using them in a traditional sense of like inner parts like harmonically, but these are like kind of little runs of things in there, in particular in the clarinets and the oboes. That while we've got like melody and harmony stuff going on, they're kind of just filling out the texture and adding kind of momentum, and they're kind of playing off of each other like da-da-dun, da-da-dun, that kind of stuff, and echoing each other. I love those parts. I think they add a lot of interest to what's going on, and I think again creating that motion, making this feel like a pretty full ensemble. I really think you could score this for a wind ensemble and like keep that kind of chamber feel, like chamber wind ensemble. Not have like 18 clarinets and 12 flutes. I don't think that would be what you want here. Like a small wind ensemble, like the kind of ensembles that Holst was writing his suites for, right? One or two on a part kind of thing. I think you could expand it and add like the trumpet, trombone, and saxophones. I think it would be effective that way, because it's already written in such a way that, with especially these inner moving parts, that there's room for a little bit more to go on that would go on in a full ensemble. Okay, so a few things that I would think about. As a flute and piccolo player myself, I tend to look at flute and piccolo first. Just it's what I know. And it's interesting to me that you have flute 1 also playing piccolo, and it's not a terrible thing. I see this a lot with young composers that I play and sight read for. They like to do this, and it's something we can do. But internally, my thought is, why? Because there is a shift in what you have to do with your mouth, and classically, traditionally, you minimize that with the principal player, the person you want to have like the sound is kind of leading the flute section, and having the other person blend to. You want them to do as little work as possible. Let the other player have to make some adjustments, or just have a dedicated piccolo player when you have a larger section. So it's not a problem. I do it all the time myself, playing flute 1 and piccolo, and something we can all do if we're competent piccolo players. But something you might want to think about is just maybe have the piccolo part and the second flute part instead, just to minimize changes for the principal flute player. You along the same lines, talking about changes between flute and piccolo. You definitely give enough time. I tried this out. I do this all the time now, going between flute and piccolo. I tried it, piccolo up, flute, piccolo down, pick the flute up, get set. The other way around, flute down, piccolo up, get set. Leave plenty of time for that, so that's good. I know composers who do not do that, and we have to fake it sometimes. So you give definitely enough time for that instrument change, but make sure in the score that you indicate the shift when it should happen, right? If you have like flute and then like 8 measures of rest and then they come in on piccolo, make sure at least you want to do this in this full score too, but make sure definitely in the player's part that you don't write like piccolo after the 8 measures, like right after, as soon as the flute part's done, write to piccolo. So yeah, I don't know if that was in your part or not, because I didn't see the full score, but just something to remember. Okay, so there, if you watch the show long enough, I love to talk about notation. So there are a few notation things I think that you want to be a little bit careful of in the full score and maybe in the parts. Yeah, so there are a couple of times in full score, it looks like the notes kind of run into each other a little bit or run into text. So just make sure you want to make sure that's clean, especially in the player's parts. And there are a few places where you have like 6-note runs in the wins, and you beam them all together, but you write triplet and then triplet. If you're going to do that, I would like sub beam them. Instead of having it looks like 6 notes. And so I would have full all 6 notes beamed, then like the triplet and triplet sub beamed to make it really clear. I think also in that tuba part at measure 30, I wouldn't necessarily note that as sextuplets. I would just write triplets for that. It's same thing, but it's easier to read that way. I would also break up the beams. I think not one continuous beam per measure. Yeah, but it's just one of those things, especially if you're like reading something, you haven't had a lot of time to rehearse, or you haven't rehearsed it at all. Switch is going to catch you off guard if you don't write it in when it should occur. Okay. A few things about the recording. So like I said, I think it's fantastic for you getting all this stuff recorded. I think the live dimension adds a lot to this piece. But a few comments on that, because I have done some recording myself, conducting myself, and also played on the other side, when recording. Yeah. So some things that I think are maybe a little bit lost, just from like difference between looking at the score and the live presentation. Just in general, I think the oboes probably can play out. Maybe that was how it was, in the room, but not quite how it came out on the recording. And I think in general, all those little inner parts that I was talking about, in particular in the clarinets and the oboes, they're very present, and I think they're probably very present in the room, but they're not quite as present as like when I see it. I'd like them to be what I see. I imagine them being more present than they are, and filling off a texture even more. Like they're audible, but I think those really could be brought out in a future recording. I think it will make the piece feel a lot fuller and add some of that momentum that I was talking about. Those parts, they have. So yeah, bring those out. I think also you want to keep in mind that intonation is always crucial. Intonation is kind of king in the recording world, but it's really crucial when you have a small ensemble. If you have some time to rehearse this, if you're going to get this performed again, make sure you really focus on intonation. I know how hard that is on both ends. Again, composer, conductor, and as a performer. Yeah, and one other comment too along the lines, going back to my initial question, or maybe my second question, rhetorical question, what the role of these instruments are. Maybe think about a little bit about the role of bassoon 2 in particular. Make sure that it's not just playing what we call footballs, which does seem to have a lot of footballs being like, whole notes, right? Because empty, if you don't read music, for kind of football shaped notes. I think the part is still is effective, but I think you can maybe add a little bit more rhythmic interest to it in some places, and maybe have it play a little bit more with the tuba. There are some times where like the tuba is bringing up the bass itself by itself. I think you could bassoon it too, maybe, and tuba could be an interesting color to explore. But yeah. Overall, really, really great piece. I'm really glad you got to record it with live musicians. Really wonderful writing, great instrumentation, and that horn melody at measure 30 with the tuba underneath of it, really, really effective. I absolutely love that. So yeah, that is those are my thoughts on Serenade to the Sky. Really great piece. Definitely check this piece out. I'm sure Irving, if he hasn't already, will put a link to the YouTube recording in the chat, and also check out Songbird Studios' other works. Again, I think everything on there, at least or most of it, it's like it's got live recordings, which is fantastic. So check out all of the Songbird Studios works.
Yeah. No, awesome. I really enjoyed listening to a live recording this time. It is a completely different, completely, even though it's, of course not like, recorded in Skywalker, Ranch or anything like that. It just brings
Abbey
so
Road.
much. Yeah, exactly. It brings so much more character to the whole thing, just automatically.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's what all music aspires to be. It aspires to be performed live and recorded by live musicians.
Yeah.
So really great that you got it done, but you have people you can go to get this to get things recorded. Yeah, fantastic that you have that opportunity. Keep leveraging it.
Yeah, and thanks for joining us in the chat. That's awesome to have people to interact with about their own pieces. Sometimes we're talking about pieces and we want to ask questions. So thanks for stopping by for sure. Yeah,
definitely. Thanks for the your thoughts on your title too. Definitely helpful, I think, for me and for everyone watching.
For sure. All right, so now we're going to go on to arguing with Reddit, and I hope that I have the template correct. I do. There you go. Well, actually, we should probably outro the last segment. Ben, you want to outro with like where to find us and all that?
Sure. So you can find all of our, links to our Discord, where we are frequently have all sorts of discussions about art, and continue what we've talked about, and further just go on in different angles, different things about art in general and our specialties on our Discord. But you can also get a link to that and to all of our social media, things, and everywhere that the podcast can be streamed or viewed. It's all on the link. It should be on the right side of the screen at mixedmediapodcast.com. If you go there, you are also, I think on there you can also get the link to our locals page, where you can support us with all the perks that Irving likes to talk about. And there are a lot of them, and I can't even keep track. I think we added some new ones recently. Irving was talking about that earlier. So, you go there if you want to see what those are. So thank you for listening to Mixed Media Music. And thank you again to Songbird Studios for joining us in the chat, and for letting me talk about and share this awesome piece, Serenade for the Sky.
Awesome. All right, here we go into our next segment.
Mixed Media Movies.
And welcome back to Mixed Media. If you are watching live and you thought that was a really weird thing for us to pretend as though you haven't been here, but you've been here this entire time, that's because we also do this in post as well. And if you're listening to this intro in post and you're really confused as to why I'm explaining that this is now the intro, that's because we do a live show. So both of y'all head into the links in the description to find our other platforms, find out where we're streaming live. Or if you're here live, find out where we are posting our stuff in post. And all that stuff's edited down, cuts out some of the fat and some of our technical issues and some of our less than perfect, like this, less than perfect descriptions of things, so to speak. Okay, so this segment we have our arguing with Reddit segment. So let's switch over to that template. Switch over there. Here we are. I'm in the hot seat today. So I'll be reacting to 3 hot takes from Reddit. It looks like all of them are from Reddit. And I haven't seen any of them. And that's because producer wife has picked the one for me. And my co-hosts over here have picked the hot takes for me as well. So I have not seen any of them. And so I guess we'll just jump into it. Why not? Let's see. Let's roll the dice. So first one's going to come from Ben. So Ben, if you know what it is, you can sort of give me a summary as I pull it up.
Let's see if I can remember what I picked.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a person who went to see Doctor Strange, the Multiverse of Madness in 3D, and says that it was quote, "It was an absolutely horrible experience. During the entire runtime of the movie, nothing was really discernible as 3D, and the amount of unfocused visual noise in the background made it very hard to watch." And the person says that their daughter is a manager in the AMC, and the daughter says that 3D ticket sales are very low these days. And this person says, if you're not going to shoot on 3D camera, and he says the last major studio production to use 3D cameras was The Hobbit in 2014. This person says, why why use like a lower budget non 3D camera and pretend you're going to come out with a decent 3D result, and like why throw that on audiences? Why would anyone go to a 3D film?
That's definitely a good one, for sure. There's been a heated topic since 3D came out. 3D is a very, very old technology. It's somehow still marketed as if it's like, it's not marketed as if it's new, but as if it's like a plus automatically. I think that's a little weird, given how old it is. It's almost as if like, well, here, I think this might be what it is. Now that I think about it, it might just be the infrastructure exists to do it, and a movie that decides to embark on that infrastructure, then the theaters are going to promote it because they have all this infrastructure to do the 3D projection, and so why not extract some value out of it? But first off, to Hi Karate, who made this post. I'm sorry that you have 0 upvotes, man. It's really annoying with Reddit, because what people do is if they automatically don't like someone, they'll just scroll through the new posts and they'll just downvote it once so that it just never will appear to anyone. But this is an interesting discussion, which is like, even if you disagree, it'd be cool to have a discussion, about it, But anyway, yeah, no, this is a very interesting topic. The area of 3D is very complex in ways that I think most people don't appreciate, because the technologies are not uniform. So, well, do either of you remember back in the days when 3D technology was like red and blue glasses? Okay.
I mean, it's been so long since I've seen a 3D film. I haven't seen one that isn't with those, I used to like I had like a dinosaur pair or something like that.
Yeah, it's it's very interesting how the tech has evolved over time, and it's not simple. So there's like multiple different kinds of recording technologies for 3D, or maybe even doing 3D in post, which lots of films do, by the way. What they'll do is they'll have a 3D, I can't remember what you call them, but basically they're an artist who goes back over a 2D picture and makes it 3D by assigning depth information to the picture. I don't know if it's frame by frame or what. I have no idea what that profession really looks like. But that tends to be the most hated type of 3D, because it's not very natural looking, because usually what you really get is, because there's no real depth data, you'll have like a character who's in the foreground, just the cutout of the character will be moved to the foreground, which is kind of odd, and then you'll have like, I don't know, a bush in the background that's like just a slightly further forward in depth than the vista in the background, which will just be like the screen depth, which looks really bad. It looks lazy, although I'm sure a lot of work goes into doing something like that, and it just doesn't add anything. It just makes it weird, because now it's a picture book film. Like with the pop-up cutouts. That's essentially what you get. And I have seen films like that I had no idea before going into the film that I remember the first time I saw it. Yeah, I had no idea that kind of 3D was a thing. So I went to go see it, popped on the glasses, like, this is not the same as other 3D things that I have experienced. That is a horrible, gimmicky thing that just needs to go away. Now, there's stuff that's recorded in 3D, which is an expensive process, and that's why a lot of times they opt for the sort of post-production way of doing it. And the way you record in 3D and get that depth information is very similar to the way our eyes do it. We have 2 lenses, right? So we have 2, cameras, so to speak. And so essentially they have to do one of 2 things. They either have to use a specialized 3D camera, which I know very little about, which has 2 sensors sort of baked into one body, which sounds like a nightmare, a nightmare of a camera to handle. Or they have to use a rig, which I've seen those as well, of 2 cameras sort of bound together to get this sort of like bifocal sort of imaging happening. Now, those things tend to look better, asterisk, because I think oftentimes what ends up happening with those, if it's not thought out, if they just said, okay, we're going to shoot this thing in 3D, and that just for no other reason than because, people don't account for the 3D-ness too well in the composition, in the spacing. It just comes off as sometimes things look a little too crowded or look odd because they're coming off the side of the screen, so like it just like destroys your immersion essentially, like, because it's like, a half of a face is like cut off but it's like in front of you. It can get disastrously weird. So basically 3D can go wrong in so many ways, and so I don't really like it very much. However, there's only one film that I've ever seen that its 3D was acceptable, and that was Avatar. But if you think about why, that makes a lot of sense why that works a lot better. It's a completely 3D rendered film. It is, there's nothing real about the film. The whole thing is a 3D rendered universe, right? It's animation. And one thing that they can do is seriously refine, every aspect of the way the 3D is working. They can go back in and adjust compositions on the fly for the sake of the 3D. It allows you many, many options. And I think one thing also I really appreciated is that it was very subtle. Like, there was nothing like super close to my face, that was like destroying, my immersion and my ability to enjoy film. It felt like it's some sort of gimmicky experience. Whereas Avatar, it mostly kept the picture back. And it was almost like, we have like just a plane. The front plane was well closer to the screen than in normal 3D pictures. And so it almost gave you the feeling that we're projecting backwards into the screen, which looks like you've got a window into a world now. It works a lot better, like for immersion purposes and a lot less gimmicky. Now, is Avatar better as a 3D film? I don't know. I don't know. I still find it to not add anything of interest almost all of the time. And one thing that's really nice about film is the precision, right? So like, unlike, interactive sort of mediums, you have a lot of control over pretty much everything. So every frame is exactly as you intend it to come across to the audience. And this is not that different from that, but there's some like level of imprecision that always happens with 3D, where it's like the composition seems a little bit off because you've got a little bit more weight to a subject, because you can see like a little bit past the curvature of their face, which ruins like the exact, profile shot you were going for. It looks a little awkward. I don't know. I don't have a strong opinion if it's, I guess, extremely well done. But I've rarely seen it extremely well done, because Avatar is literally the only example. And the fact that it's an upcharge, I mean, you might as well just not do it, in my opinion. So there's my opinion. You guys have opinions on 3D films?
I thought the Lego movie was pretty good in 3D.
I have not seen that in 3D.
Where's that?
I haven't seen that in 3D, so maybe it is.
Oh, yeah, it's the most, like, 3D looking thing I've ever seen, I think. Like, I remember, I don't even know how to explain it. Like, it's also been a long time since I watched it, so I mean, my memory's a bit fuzzy. Well, I definitely remember thinking, 3D was pretty like, realistic looking. Maybe it's like that, mates, because I guess similar to Avatar, it's all fake anyways. Although, like, and because it's just 3D like modeling, right? And so they probably were able to, if they made it like with 3D in mind specifically, I guess they probably were able to do some 3D modeling trickery, whatever with their software to make it look really nice. Remember the ground specifically? The ground looked like almost like it jutted out of the screen a little bit. So like it's almost like you had like a play with like a theater, right? And then but like the Yeah, you know, like on a play, right? You have like, say, like your screen, right? So you have like a rectangle, like a window, a large rectangular window thing, right? That opens up the play. But the stage sometimes juts out a little bit. That's kind of what it felt like watching the Lego Movie. So yeah.
Yeah.
It's been so long since I've seen anything in 3D. I guess what it reminds me of, it seems like it's kind of a gimmick in some ways, along the lines of, I never experienced it, but I remember reading about like maybe it's Jurassic Park films, like if you watch it like in Disney Studios or something like that. Not only would it be like 3D, but like when the dinosaurs like breathing on your neck, like they would blast hot air, and then like when there's like mist, they'll like spray you with mist. It's kind of like a gimmick. And then I ask myself, what's the point of it? Like, what's the point of the film? Are you supposed to literally feel like you are inside of the world? Which is, I think, what 3D is just trying to create. It's trying to create that immersion. But why? Like, is that what film is about? I don't know. Now I'm getting kind of philosophical about like film theory, but I don't feel like when I watch a film, I want to feel that I'm in the world, of the film. I still want to have like be grounded enough to realize that I'm watching a film in some sense. I don't know.
Oh, I was muted. Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I guess I haven't like really philosophized about it so much either, because I just generally just ignore 3D films mostly. So, yeah, no, I agree with you. It's just it's almost like it feels a little bit outside of the medium. So here we've got 909 Crime in the house. Hello, sup? So he says 3D used to be fun back in the day. I remember really loving the 4D IMAX thing they had going on at Hershey Park. But then again, I was a kid back then. I could have sworn I saw Spy Kids 2 or 3 back in the day in 3D. I had fun there too. I'm pretty sure like one of those Spy Kids films was really leaning into the 3D, like whoa, there's something coming at you right now.
I think Spy Kids and Shark Boy and Lava Girl were two movies that really were trying to like if you watch it in 2D, you can tell like all the things that would have been in 3D, coming out.
Oh yeah, see, you said that right as I was typing. Yeah, Shark Boy and Lava Girl. I remember.
Oh.
3D, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The spray and hot air is part of the experience. I've actually done some of those 4D experiences at like Six Flags locally, maybe some other places where the seat moves and everything like that. Now the thing is with those sorts of things, those aren't films, right? Like they're not like they're more like rides than they are films, if you know what I mean. I'm not really appreciating that for the filmmaking. It almost feels like just a completely different thing, that you've made. That's way more about the experience of the picture corresponding with what your physical sensations are. So yeah, that's interesting. Chicken Little, that's true. Although I'm sure, no, yeah, I guess so. I'd have to rewatch Chicken Little. That's a throwback right there. Cool. Let's go to the next one here. So this one is from Producer Wife. So the title is, I don't think they have to reshoot movies if an actor, main or side, does something stupid before release. The situations like Ezra Miller and Amber Heard, okay, that was talked about that earlier in the news segment, shouldn't ruin the employment of movies for people. Just like if there's a band of musicians whose music you enjoy gets in trouble for something, we need to be okay with separating art from the artist. Now, I got a instruction to scroll down. I'm not sure which comment I'm supposed to look at. I forget because I'm a horrible person. Let's see here.
I got it. It says, oh wait, I don't got it. Scroll down to the little thread of QING 92.
QING 92. Let's see if I can scroll down also on your live screen. Let's see. Is this? It's kind of small for me here. Let's find it first over here.
Can you control it? Is that possible? Oh, you
Not
found it?
not on
Okay.
my live editor, unfortunately. There it is.
Oh,
I found
okay.
it though.
I didn't really know how it worked, so.
Um, there it is. So QING92 says, what about all the other actors, producers, director, and everyone else? Oh, apparently that's the wrong one. Okay, it's the responses to that. That's the interesting part, apparently. Okay, so it's not cancel culture. It's 100% consequence culture. You do something vile, people will want nothing to do with every aspect of your toxicity. And then someone responds to that saying, I mean, is that really true? Consequence culture, cancel culture, outrage culture, whatever, the F culture, it's all the same thing, and it's all arbitrary, meaningless. Just look up the rap scene. random throw to the last rap scene there. A non-inconsequential number of the most successful rap artists of all time are known gang members who all but admit to some pretty despicable-ish in their music. Even outside of the music industry, it's been fairly common knowledge for a while that Amber Heard was the real abuser and lied about Johnny. There's effing audio tapes. People still think Johnny is the instigator and support him being cut from a lot of projects. Yeah, this is an interesting topic. It's interesting because a lot of terms are thrown around without definition. And I'm not going to say I have the right definitions for all the terms because I don't think I've thought about it that deeply. But I get the sense that when people say stuff like cancel culture,
Oh, you cut out for me? Hello?
oh,
Yeah, I can't hear Irving either.
hello. That's odd because it looks like I'm still
Oh.
broadcasting audio. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Well, on that note, I have thought about this like odd. Can the stream hear me? I don't know if I'm talking
Can
into
you
the void.
guys hear me now?
Oh, okay, it's
yeah,
back.
yeah.
Okay, there we go. Oh, were we gonna say Nathan? You can go ahead.
I mean, I was gonna say like I have thought about the rapper thing for quite some time. I'm like, this is very odd. I was thinking like if like I don't know, like Ed Sheeran came out with like a rap song, right? What would happen? Like the world will explode.
The concept is hilarious, just on the face of it.
You take like any like I don't know generic rap song, and even like a mild because like okay, there are ones okay there are rap songs that are more mild, right? But even the mild ones are extreme for like someone like Ed Sheeran. Like,
Oh boy, yeah, no, that's true. That's hilarious. I'm still thinking about Ed Sheeran rapping, and I want it to happen somehow. So the terms in here are the interesting part. So like cancel culture, I guess consequence culture, which just sounds like a responsive sort of term to cancel culture. I don't know. I think there are separate things going on. I think there's the sort of like forced gatekeeping that I think used to mean cancel culture. So like when you think about like like against the market forces, someone is sort of by whatever gatekeeping sort of forces there are, whether it's funding or whether it's venue owners. I don't know. Like you can think of the whole apparatus of institutional apparatus saying, we don't want X person around. And so them drill rappers. Sorry. That's what 99 Grams said in the chat. Yeah. Now I'm thinking about Ed Sheeran doing drill. I'm sorry. That's hilarious.
be our new outro.
That's such a ridiculous concept. But yeah, so like there's that sort of like gatekeeping aspect of things from the sort of institutional level. That's, I guess, a form of it. There's like the sort of like, and that would include like social media, that would include like, film studios, whatever. Then there's the sort of like market forces aspect of it. Is that also cancel culture? Like, I think it depends on who you ask, like whether or not cancel culture includes like people just making free decisions not to consume something because they don't like someone. So I would say that distinction at least is important, because when people complain about things, they tend to be talking past each other about what exactly they're talking about. Like when someone says like some random YouTuber tried to cancel someone, usually that doesn't actually mean that, because like, can a YouTuber cancel someone? Like, what does that even mean? Like for like, you know, when I'm saying like, when I say YouTuber, I mean like just someone with like 200,000 subs. Like, is a 200,000 sub YouTube account gonna actually destroy someone, end someone's career? I don't know if that's what cancel culture really means, unless they're trying to instigate that. Maybe, I don't know. In short, these terms are interesting, and I haven't really given deep thought about it. However, what I can say is that I'm super. As long as, okay, let's put it this way: the law, right? So yeah, going back to my love for the law, you know, so the First Amendment. The point of the First Amendment is to allow for free speech, obviously. However, defamation, right? So if you do a defamation suit, defamation on its face would be a violation of the First Amendment. Why? Because you would be saying there should be a penalty, right, for your speech. So you did some free act of speech, and there's a penalty, monetary penalty. For your untruthful, damaging speech, which is a very broad definition for defamation. Unless you're a person of interest, then it's untrue, damaging speech with actual malice, which is a very legalese sort of term. But the point I'm trying to make here is that the reason why defamation is considered sort of an exception to the First Amendment is, one, because that's how the founding fathers would have thought about it as well. It's sort of English common law. The second reason, though, is that it's a deprivation of a different kind, right? So the defamation, what defamation does is it deprives people from the enjoyment of their property, which for, let's say you're an actor, might be your career, right? So it's a deprivation of your ability to enjoy property, which is sort of a different thing. We've got someone on Twitch. Sup. We've got Toony Hips saying hello. How are y'all? We're pretty good. We're having a fun time talking about hot takes over here. So welcome to the show.
What's up, person? Ooh, what's up?
Exactly. So yeah, that's interesting. So what I'm saying, the reason I say that about defamation is that the point is that if someone says something that disrupts your enjoyment of something that's considered to be bad on a societal level, so much so that it outweighs the free speech right of the person who says it, right? In that sense, I feel as though for things like that are defamatory, like, for example, what's alleged, with Amber Heard, which I think the allegation is quite credible, but that's not what this show is about. The want for people to not want to support someone who is destroying someone else's enjoyment of their property sort of flows from the law. So I find that to be quite a natural response because the law contemplates it, right? I mean, this is like an ancient part of at least here in the U.S., of our legal sort of backdrop, right? And I understand why people react that way. Now, when it comes to things that don't rise to the level of defamation, right? So like you haven't proven anything, it's more speculative, and you're sort of goading institutional actors to do something, based off of sort of speculative things. I think that's where some people get mad. Or if it's like based off of nothing, right? Like there's no reason, it's just, let's say, just a mob sort of mentality. I feel like that's coming from a different place, right? So maybe that's part of the conversation. I don't know. I'm literally ideating like live here on the air. I don't have an actual, firm opinion on it, but I think that's an interesting discussion that we ought to have about this sort of thing and really defining what we mean by certain things. Because yeah, I have no problem if I shot someone as a director and you didn't come see my movie because I shot someone. I kind of understand that. I kind of get that. So, that That was not even meant to be a Rust reference, but it accidentally was. So there you go. Oh yeah, Ben, you weren't here last episode. The news, the new news from last episode is that the producer for Rust said that they're going to finish the film. So that.
Wait, but wasn't what's his name? I can't think of his name. Wasn't he one of the producers too?
Alec Baldwin?
Alec Baldwin. Yeah, wasn't he one of the producers?
Yeah, he was one of the producers. He has not made a statement one way or the other, but the other producer, one of the other producers, has said, "Yeah, we're finishing the film. I want to bring it to premiere at some big film." So,
where they will make a total of $2.
Okay. I don't think that's going to be on my watch list.
Yeah.
Also, who would want to work on that set exactly? I wouldn't.
Yeah, I don't know. Given the set conditions before that seem to have been, I don't know that anybody from the prior production is going to be returning, and you might have to pay a pretty penny to get more people to come back and finish your freaking film. So I'm wondering if the director is even down for this, or they have to hire a new director. We'll see. We'll see. The saga continues. This is one of the most bizarre stories to develop that I've ever seen. That whole saga, very bizarre.
I wonder if the whatever her name is, the arms master, whatever you call her. I wonder if she's returning. Armor.
She's not returning. If she returned, I think I'd literally die. No, I mean, she's suing the production, so she's certainly not returning.
Okay, well.
Unless she's imagine if she was contractually obligated, like she's under contract and she's owed those days. That'd be hilarious. I wouldn't even know what to say at that point. Producer wife Stephanie England in the chat says, "Not sure if I missed you saying this, but does the defamation only apply if it's not the truth?" Yes, I did not say that. That is absolutely correct. So the truth is an absolute defense to defamation, meaning, you know, if I can damage your career with the truth, and that's not defamation anymore, right? I'm just conveying true information. Defamation is when you lie about someone that causes a deprivation of property rights. That's essentially what defamation is. So, yeah, which also means that if it didn't cause any actual damage, you also couldn't sue. Well, you could sue. You can always sue for anything. It probably won't survive a motion to dismiss, right? So, there you go. Yeah, so that was a fun one. Let's see the next hot take from Reddit. Let's see here. So this one's also from Producer Wife. Let's. Oh, no, this one's not from Producer Wife. Sorry, this one is from Nathan. Yeah. So while I pull it up, you wanna give me a description?
Yeah. So the original post doesn't really have a hot take in itself, but the question asks for your hot take, pretty much. Essentially, the question is, what two actors without familial links were perfectly cast together? So the first response says the entire Weasley family, which, ignoring the twins, I guess, because presumably they are related in real life. But aside from that, apparently they have good chemistry and whatnot. There are a bunch of other responses, but unfortunately, I'm not really too familiar with pretty much any of these movies. I'm familiar with some of these actors and actresses, but these movies, some of them I just never even heard of. So, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm probably gonna embarrass myself because I'm really bad, despite my love for film. I'm really bad with actors' names. Like, I'm really bad with anything that's like who's related to who, and like, I don't know, unless it's like specifically related to some topic of interest. I'm not very good with actors. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna scroll through and I guess react to some of these pairings. So let's see, we've got so if you removed so this is not real life relatives. This is like fictional.
Yeah, it's within. It doesn't have to be relative at all. It's just two people cast together who did well in their roles together. Who are not,
okay, I could do
who are
that.
not real life family members.
Okay, yeah, that's a lot easier. Let's see, is there anything that comes off the top of the dome here? Let's see. Any sort of family, let's see, castings that were super great. Let's see, trying to think of films with like strong family tones. Oh, I
My
think the
first
cast.
thought was like,
Oh, go ahead.
huh?
No, you go ahead first.
Yeah, my first thought as a I was thinking family. I was like, what movies have families in them? I thought Home Alone. I was like, wait a minute, that's not really not really the greatest example.
99 Crime says Dumb and Dumber. I don't know if that counts. Actually, I haven't seen that, so I couldn't comment. Again, I'm a completely uncultured film lover. Let's see. So what came to mind randomly was the father-daughter relationship in Interstellar. I really love that. I think the child actress, I don't know her name, does a great job. Probably way too good of a job given the scenario. Producer wife says daughter, father, family from Coda. Yeah. So the father, if you've heard my review of all the Oscar films, which you should totally check out, it's on the channel. The father is a great actor, and he deserved that Oscar for sure. He absolutely ate every scene he was in. He had a great emotional scene with the main character that sort of was the pinnacle of it all. That really ripped at the heartstrings. Really beautiful stuff. The thing is, it's chemistry. That's like the question, right? So it's like, it's not just like any individual actor playing well with another actor who's also playing well. It's like those particular actors are amazing together. All right, I'm gonna scroll through because I'm gonna f this up. So it says, let's see. Do we have any interesting ones in here? Robert Redford, Brad Pitt in Run Through. Okay, let's see. The Weasley family from Harry Potter, which is what you're saying. There are real siblings in that group. Disqualified. Lol. The twins. Lol. Let's see. We've got. Oh man, so many films I have not seen. This is a big F for me. Brie Larson and Jacob Tremblay in Room. Not to be confused with The Room. That's actually on my list of films to see. That was like Brie Larson's like breakout. I am not a Brie Larson fan by any stretch of the imagination, but that's supposedly a good film, so I totally want to check that out. Henry Johnny Depp and Tolio, Fear of Loathing. Okay. I haven't seen so many of these things. This is ridiculous. John Travolta and Nicolas Cage in Face Off. That's a funny one. Okay, but like, I am low key thinking that that I want a Nicolas Cage movie in my future as a director. Unironically, that is a complete unironic statement. I want him to do something ridiculous in one of my films, and it would be so fun. I would have the time of my life. Huh?
Do you have a plan, you have a planned idea?
No. Just the concept of Nicolas Cage being in a ridiculous movie brings me absolute joy.
Okay.
Let's see, man, I'm really like effing on these. Yeah, I haven't seen so many of these things. Maybe I need to watch more things with family ties. Maybe that's the goal here. B movie 909 Crimes. I guess there's some good family dynamic. There Will Be Blood. Producer wife says the father son. That's a good. So There Will Be Blood. I am slowly coming to the reality that might be my favorite film of all time as of now. Which is that's like too much opinion for me to have. I'm an opinion person, but having a favorite film is just a lot. It's emotional, right? Like to say one singular film is your absolute favorite film. I'm not sure there. But yeah, I mean Daniel Day-Lewis and the child actor, they do so good together. So yeah, their chemistry is really good. That's a good example. Um, yeah, I'm gonna embarrass myself if I keep trying, so I'm gonna stop now.
Do animated films count? Just
Animated,
voice
yeah, sure,
actors?
yeah.
Hmm. I don't know. I'm a really big fan of the Haddock family. You know, the main family in How to Train Your Dragon. I think all the um, father, son, and mother do really well together. Just and just in terms of voice acting.
Interesting. Yeah, I haven't seen How to Train Your Dragon in so long. Like, I think I actually saw it in theaters when it came out. When did it come out? What year?
The first one was in 2010.
Yeah, that would explain it. That would explain my like lack of memory there. That was 12 years ago, so yeah, I was a young lass. um, yeah. So, oh, we have more responses here. Oh no, we don't. YouTube is glitching out. Lovely. So I see we have an awesome growing audience on Twitch at random. I don't know if it's me.
I was just thinking, like, usually Twitch is like pretty dead, and then we have like YouTube, right?
Yeah.
And then I just look at Twitch like, huh, these numbers are great.
So sup my Twitch people. We have a sort of amalgamated chat going on between YouTube, Twitch, and Discord, as well as our Rumble folks who can sort of see the chat but can't really participate directly. So welcome to the show. This is the segment that I do once weekly where I basically react to hot takes that my co-hosts and my lovely wife pick out for me about anything filmmaking, because I'm a filmmaker and I have opinions, and sometimes they're a little spicy. So those are my opinions for today. If you want to check out more of those, definitely check out our YouTube, because that's where the stuff is permanently stored. So I would suggest that, or join the Discord, and you can find a link to that in the About section just fine, or go to mixedmediapodcast.com. But for now, we're going to be transitioning to our next segment where, and this might interest you legitimately, we're going to be talking about eSports. So here, let me switch over so we can see the beautiful episode artwork there. There you go. Designing games for esports. So I'm going to quickly transition to that. For those of you who are listening in post to the edited version, I'll see you next week, and check out all links in the description. So, Nathan, you ready?
Yep.
All right, here we go.
Mixed Media Gaming.
Hello and welcome to the gaming section of the Mixed Media Podcast. Today's my topic segment, and I'll be talking about designing games for esports. And I made the mistake of not pulling up my notes before this segment started. All right, I got it. Cool. Esports are becoming more and more prevalent, and a lot of these current esports games weren't really designed with being an esport, in mind. So things like, say League of Legends, right? I don't know how much they really thought about, okay, we need to create this whole game around the idea of it becoming an esport kind of thing, right? Where I think we might see a future where more games are going to specifically try to be an esport, not, as their only thing, it should also be a game that's fun for, the general population to play, but as something they really shoot for as a target to become an esport in a market that I would say is relatively undersaturated, as there are not that many esports that people commonly watch. It's like a few big ones. I don't think it's because those big ones are, so good that, no one wants to watch anything else. It's more like there's just not that many options for esports to watch. So I've been creating a list of sort of goals that, as like, game designer, or maybe that term is a bit too specific, not just a game designer, more like general game development team, things that it should take into account when designing a game with esports in mind, or potentially designing a game mode, for example, within a game that you want to be competitive, right? So one thing that you want to manage pretty well is your player base, right? So you want to have a constant shift of people inside your league and out of your league, right? So you want people to enter and exit. The reason why you want this is because, well, you want fresh new talent, of course. You want the latest and greatest people, right? Who are probably going to be the younger people who are up and coming. And then you want your people eventually to retire as they've gotten older and they're not as good anymore at the game. They've passed their prime essentially, right? You see the same sort of pattern with normal athletic sports, like basketball, baseball, whatever. People generally retire. Relatively young for occupations in general, and we see in the esports scene that people tend to retire really, really early at say 25, and we'll get to why that is later.
So 909 Crime, real quick, says in the chat, is speed running an esport?
Yeah, for sure. I would think so, right? I mean, I have a very loose definition of what an esport is. I guess I figure it's just actually. I don't know anymore. Now I'm thinking about it a bit more. Let's say I figure an esport is just a competitive video game, right? But then that begs the question, is playing a competitive video game outside of a league an esport then? So, for example, if I play CSGO and I just hop into a competitive match, am I playing an esport? Or do I have to actually be in, what's it called, ESL? Is that the CSGO one? I don't remember.
Well, if you're playing basketball, street basketball, is that
That's a sport, right?
Yeah, that's a sport. You would think. I don't know.
Okay. I guess we'll say speedrunning is an esport, sure. However, in this talk, I'm specifically talking within the context of organized, large-scale esport that's been broadcasted, sort of thing, right? So you're streaming it on Twitch or whatever, right? That kind of thing. So Overwatch League, stuff like that. And by the way, I did watch a good bit of esports footage to make this segment, and man, it's some of it's hard to watch. I'll get to that later, I guess. Right. So one thing, yeah. So as I was saying before, you want a constant amount of players entering and a constant amount of players leaving. Now, in order to have you want a large player base of people capable of entering the league at all times, right? So because if you have no one who's capable of entering the league, then you have no league. It's kind of obvious. No, but I'm more specifically, let's look at a bad example of this, and NASCAR. So with NASCAR, it's not really easy at all to enter the league. You have to jump through a lot of hoops to do this, right? One, I guess the biggest barrier to entry is just practicing racing. How do you do that? You can't really without large investments, right? So you get to buy a stock car of something that's similar-ish to a NASCAR, right? So that you can practice the same skill. Because if you buy a random car, I'm assuming it's not going to handle the same way as a NASCAR, right? And so your skills aren't going to develop the same way. So you want something as similar to a NASCAR stock car as possible, preferably without paying NASCAR prices for those cars because you can't afford it, and at least not alone, And you need a racetrack to go to, and you need a racing license. So these three things are pretty much make it unattainable as a pursuit for nearly everybody in existence, right? There are very select few people who can even consider joining NASCAR. I mean, okay, I know there are there are technically routes. I think you're supposed to start you can do go-kart races at the start, and you there's a WikiHow article on it. It's you start at go-karts, then you become an intern of somebody. Something weird like that.
WikiHow. You start at go-karts, then you add nitrous to the go-kart.
Oh yeah. You got a bigger engine. Yeah. I also need a bunch of people to race with, right? So you need a bunch of like-minded people who also have expensive cars and have a racing license and also live near the racetrack. Yeah, it's not something that the average person can really do. And this leads to a sort of issue that NASCAR has where, at least I was reading an article from 2018 with this formation called, oh, by the way, I don't watch NASCAR, so just so you know, I mean, some of this stuff might be obvious if you're a NASCAR watcher and stuff like that, but I'm just explaining for the general population who doesn't know. But in 2018, at least as of 2018, there were these three racers called the Big Three, right? And these three races were essentially just dominant. So of the 19 races that year, they won, combined, those three won 14. So nearly all of them they won, right? And as one might expect, it's been criticized because this dominance sort of leads to a very predictable and therefore boring type of race. You probably already know, like, okay, out of these, however many racers, I mean, only 3 of them are really relevant here. The rest of them aren't really too interested in you're not interested in watching, right? Even if they might win like one game, in the championships or however it works, I don't know how it works. One of those 3 are almost certainly going to win the entire thing, right? That being said, there's a bit more nuance to this. I was reading an article, I didn't finish it, saying that okay, NASCAR is still interesting to watch because even though you might have this dominance, like you could say a lot of those races are close races and stuff like that, right? It's like, and I didn't read the whole thing, so that was just like the first part, right? But you can say like a lot of races, it's pretty close, so you never know who's going to win. But it just turns out that those 3 end up winning pretty much every time. I don't know. I should probably read more into it, but that's what I got so far. Example of a game or a sports league that does this sort of well is the NBA, for example, or really most sports leagues I'd say that are popular. So NBA, MLB. I say NFL is probably a bit tough because it's kind of hard to find someone who would be willing to be tackled and stuff like that. And part of the issue is that you need sports gear, and not many people are not willing to be tackled without sports gear, right? So you end up playing something like flag football, which doesn't, you're not practicing many of the aspects required to play football. And once again, there's a path for that. You play in high school, you play in college, whatever. But it's not nearly as successful. But it's also not as bad as NASCAR, is what I'm trying to say, right? But NBA is a lot better. It's just basketball, right? So you can go to a park, for example. They probably have a basketball court there. You bring a basketball. There are probably people there. You can probably play with them, right? Same with the gym. If you have a gym membership and the gym has a basketball court in it, they probably even supply their own balls, so you don't have to buy basketball. And you don't have to think about pumping it with air. They've done that already for you. Even if you don't have a team to play with, you can just shoot some hoops, yourself. And at least you're practicing part of the skill. And every once in a while, you can play as a team. And you can sort of you can also join like a rec league too. There are many ways to get better at basketball, but just about 0 ways to get better at NASCAR racing. And Irving's camera has died, I've noticed. I noticed he was frozen. Wasn't sure if I should comment on that or if he's fixing it or not.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, so that's sort of how you want to get your players to have a healthy player base of people who are coming into the game. That's just through making your game sort of accessible to people, so they can play it easily. All right, a low barrier to entry, I guess. At the same time, you also want to retain professional players. So the way that sports works is, sort of the teams tend to operate as their own business. So say the New York Knicks, for example, in basketball, right? They make their profit through selling tickets to games, to home games, for example. Selling merchandise is a big thing as well, right? So the key thing being
and
merchandise,
streaming, right? And that's broadcast, media rights and fees.
Yeah, I figured that as well. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So stuff like that. Now for a big part of it, which is like merchandise, for example, you want all the audience members to become attached to players, right? So you don't want them to be leaving too fast, right? Which is an issue we see a lot with current esports, is that people retire pretty quickly. But who's going to be buying your jerseys and stuff like that? If you're here for a year and then you're gone. You don't really get attached. And it's sort of an interesting story. I'll get to stories later. But it's an interesting story you see in a lot of sports where you see players evolve throughout. They might start as an underdog and become really dominant in the field, for example. It's sort of a nice story you can tell people or whatever. Or you might see the opposite of people who sort of fell off the face of the earth. They got a lot worse, whatever. Rivalries, for example, stuff like that. Or people who tend to work really nicely together and synergize. So you want to retain professional players for a long amount of time. Obviously not forever, because you still want new talent. You can bring new things. You can innovate on what the older players have done already. But you don't want to just immediately throw out everyone the moment they become slightly irrelevant. I mean, the goal is to make them not ever become. It shouldn't be that easy for them to become irrelevant, I guess. When I see this happen in a lot of esports, because games are very fluid and they change a lot. For example, taking a class-based shooter like Overwatch, for example. If you were to add a new character, you might cause certain strategies to become obsolete or change the meta, right? And so perhaps, a player who specializes in that one strategy, suddenly the strategy is obsolete, and they didn't adapt in time. They didn't, learn. Maybe it was a lot easier to pull in a new person who just learned the new strats that are good, rather than convert an old person into like adapting to the new style. And so you just replace the old guy essentially, right? And by old I mean like not even that old. It hasn't been there for that long. That's one possible reason that the turnover rate in the video games industry, or esports industry, has been high. Although I guess it's a bit like a bit of a mystery. When you look these things up, there seems to be no general consensus. People who are esports players themselves who have retired, some of them say, well, it's health issues. Maybe it's interesting that you can get into esports related injuries, such as like hurting your wrist, for example, and that sort of can end your career, I guess. Oftentimes it's just temporary, like you're gone and you come back, right? But sometimes it's just like you might have an actual terminal issue or something like that. For example, in Shroud's case, it's just because like he was doing streams on Twitch. If you don't know, Shroud was a former CS:GO player. He was doing streams on Twitch, and they ended up doing well for him, and so he just retired from the esports and then decided to just stream on Twitch full time. So there's a wide variety of reasons why people may do this, right? A lot of it might have to do with the fact that the job isn't nearly as enticing as a traditional athletic sport. I'm going to say basketball, for example, or it doesn't really matter what sport, right? Any major sport, you get paid a lot, for example, right? With esports, a lot of these teams actually don't get paid that much. A lot of them, it's more like they get their big pay. For some of them, they really rely on winning championships, and they rely on that prize money. For a lot of teams I've read, it's like they compete even at the smaller levels, eat some kid's lunch, take the money from there, and that's how they fund themselves, which I kind of feel bad. Like you pull up to a tournament, relatively a large tournament, but not like the biggest leagues, and you're feeling confident, and you see like a pro team, here, and it's like, all right, that's kind of annoying. They should not be competing at this bracket. You don't see like like baseball players competing in like the minor leagues, for example, something like that. Perhaps it's not enticing enough. There are other options that are more enticing. And you have things like, the changing metas and stuff like that cause younger people to be a bit better. So that's it for the player base, at least. You also want to, make it, it's obvious, enjoyable to watch. Okay. But there are some considerations when designing a game to make this, happen. So one, you need to strike like a nice balance in pacing, for example. So when you think about a game, right, usually, and this is very like dependent on the type of game you want, right? Take baseball. Baseball, and I think football as well, you can categorize those as more as like background games. So you can put them in the background while you're doing something, and you're not really going to miss anything, probably. Well, maybe for football. But at least in baseball, you're probably not going to miss too much. It's relatively slow paced. For football, it's a lot of downtime in between where you can be doing something else, talking to somebody, whatever it is, and then you just pay attention once the action starts.
You have to put on the commercial every 2 minutes.
Yeah, yeah. While the commercial's playing, you do whatever, and you come back when the game's back, that kind of thing. Whereas and you sort of have this thing with like I'd say like most sports, right, where you can like leave and come back and for like a decent amount of time, and nothing's gonna you're not gonna like be missing so much context you can't go on watching anymore. You'll be fine. But at least like NFL and baseball, I feel like there's more background sports, and things like tennis or basketball, you really leave and come back, right? But at least there's pretty much something going on at most times in the game, right? Save for timeouts and stuff like that. Where's I going with that? I forgot what my point was. So pacing is very dependent on the game you're trying to make, right? You could make something slower paced with a lot of downtime. It's going to be a background esport you watch. Although I don't imagine that's going to be very interesting for the players to play, but I don't know. People like playing baseball, so I don't know. I didn't like playing baseball, by the way, because it's very boring. I think kickball as well, because you just wait in a line for a really long time until you can finally have your one moment of greatness, and then it's over. But that's a tangent, I guess. So people will play your game, I guess. You do have a lot of downtime. Aside from pacing, you also think about like commentators, right? So commentators, if you're experimenting with esports, thinking about what can they say about the situation? Can they say enough, or is it like there's not enough space here to say the things they need to say, right? What kind of information should they be saying at these sorts of times? And then you can sort of think about pacing in that regard, because you never want like really long awkward silence except in certain games, of course, right? Like tennis, for example, there tends to be a lot of silence, and that's fine, I think. Especially as people are concentrating on the back and forth that's going on and not really, tennis is probably like one of the least background games, right? So since it's not always happening pretty much. You also want to design with streaming in mind. So if you're making an esport, expect it to be streamed a lot, right? You're probably not going to be targeting traditional television. That's a very hard bar to reach, I figure. Although obviously, if you get big enough, you can do that. But at least for the start, you're probably relying mostly on streams. And if you're doing it on something like Twitch, for example, the quality is really bad. So you have to take that into account. You might not realize it in a lot of streams, but the moment you try to look at something that's even mildly complex, the compression will really destroy it. So avoiding things like gradients, for example, and images, that just looks bad. You'll get that banding where the colors will suddenly jump and stuff like that. You see it on YouTube too. Twitch is just really bad though. I'm actually not sure how YouTube streaming compares to YouTube just normal videos, not live videos. I'm not sure if it's worse for streaming.
Oh, it's definitely worse for streaming.
Oh, it is? Okay, so I guess
it's just a little bit. It's just a little better than Twitch, basically.
Okay. You also have to deal with Twitch's downtime too, where Twitch will randomly just your stream will freeze. That I don't know how to fix that. That's just it's just you have to deal with that and hope. You probably have to be very attentive when your audience is unable to see what's going on anymore and do a quick recap. I guess that's not really relevant to game design. It's more like your commentators being good or whatever. So designing with streaming in mind, you have to keep in mind this compression, right? So simple, large icons are probably good. Not too many colors. It all depends on how the compression works. I don't know, right? But you might benefit from reducing the amount of colors there are, depending on what type of compression algorithm is being used. As I said before, removing all gradients, and that will sort of prevent a noticeable quality degradation. Obviously, with certain things like certain games, that really does not work. You really cannot avoid having a lot of complex shapes and a lot of colors going on that are mixed and stuff like that. And it kind of sucks. But at least for perhaps UI elements, things like transitions, stuff like that. Once again, I guess it's going a little bit outside of game development and into this sort of the stream setup. You might want to have more flat colors and stuff like that. And also design with small screen sizes in mind, because a lot of people might be watching on a phone, for example. So avoid text heavy things in general, but especially small text. Text might look fine on your larger screen computer, but the moment you put it on a phone, it might be pretty much not readable anymore, or at least hard to read. So avoid that kind of stuff. Same with icons. Icons are easy to read in general when they're smaller, usually if it's a good icon, but still avoid them when they're small. Aside from technical streaming stuff, when you're designing a game for esports, I've said this before many times, I'll probably say it again, is that thing that William Wright once said, that you should give your players a story to tell. Well, I'm sort of flipping it a little bit and sort of giving the viewers a story to tell about the game that's being played, right? So this is more about spreading organically. So a lot of the way that sports spread is through people just saying, "Oh, do you see the sports match? X, Y, Z happened, whatever." And you have a conversation, and this conversation might occur online, in person, whatever. But someone's probably hearing it, right? You're thinking, "Oh, maybe I'll watch the sport, whatever." And it's bringing more excitement to the sport. People talking about it, right? And there's buzz about it. So you need to, I think this is really important, is giving the viewers a story to tell. Doing something that making this in terms of game design, this might manifest itself as creating rules that are relatively simple, so that if something as abstract as a game, for example, you don't want to really have to go into a long explaining "Oh, hey, have you watched this match? No, you don't know this game. All right, let me explain all 30 rules, right?" You want to be very simple, right? So, for example, if you're, let's say, it's like a racing esports, right? The rules are very simple. Well, at least, okay, maybe not simple, but they're known. That's the good part, right? Is that people know what racing is. And so you might not have to explain what the game is, right? But you can say you say, "Oh, it's a racing game." And then you can say this happened, X, Y, Z, whatever, and you can explain the story. Imagine explaining Overwatch to a person who's never played a video game before, trying to explain a match. It's we captured this point, and then This XYZ. You push the payload. What's a payload? Oh, well, it's this thing that spawns when you capture the point.
It's a physical analog, right? Like that's the thing. It's like an analog to something that's intelligible because it's like real life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. When you get more abstract, it becomes harder. So if you're designing it for esports, specifically, you want to make it familiar to people. So either it literally has a physical version of what's the word I'm looking for? Whatever, you know what I'm saying? Whatever you said, or it's just really simple. Say like Rocket League, for example, right? Rocket League, there is no physical version of this, right? Car soccer, but I can just say car soccer, and you sort of get it, right? And you can use soccer terms to refer to it, and you can use car terms as well, right? And you can probably explain to someone who has never seen Rocket League at all. You can probably explain, a specific moment of a match, and they can probably even feel why that's an intense moment or something like that, or why it's a crazy moment. Say for the more technical things like, oh, he did a Cuxier pinch and then went into the goal. It's like, what is that? And you have to explain, oh, he pinched it against the wall. Why is there a wall in this car soccer game? So it's more technical things. Perhaps you should ignore those. But at least on like a very basic level, being able to explain your game very simply is always a good thing. But very specifically, like explaining to someone who's never heard of the game before is very good in terms of esports. And on that sort of note, you also want to have sort of bite-sized moments that you can tell stories of, right? So if you're able to segment your game into little like sections of action, for example, I say Rocket League is a poor example because it tends to be a very fluid and different like quote unquote possessions sort of like flow into each other very fluidly. There aren't really like there are moments that are notable, but it's harder to segment those moments, right? And making these moments is not just useful for telling the story. What they're really useful for is doing things like PR, for example, is being able to send those. Hopefully you don't have to send them out. Hopefully your viewers will take clips on Twitch, whatever. They'll clip certain moments and then they'll show them, right? And maybe like 15 seconds or whatever of these bite-sized moments that you can share, and that is infinitely more valuable than having to explain in words. The thing I was just saying before is being able to explain in words to the game, because in this way, if I show someone Overwatch, they might actually be able to understand it a bit more. If I show them like a 15-second clip of the game rather than trying to explain whatever for however long, right? In terms of like seconds per understood, it's probably a lot better there with the video. So yeah, and you can probably expand that concept to having like a more general game that has a more general flow to it. So even.
Oh no, you're breaking up.
Oh, I am. Is my Wi-Fi cutting out?
Oh no. Ben is
Am I
frozen
still
out too.
Oh no. I mean, you guys look fine to me. I don't know what happened.
Interesting. Hopefully it's not my internet about to explode again.
Okay.
Give it one. Yeah, I can still hear you. So you can go ahead.
All right. Well, yeah, and like a game like War Game, Red Dragon, for example, a War Game, Airland Battle, you might have these more general stories of like, here's a large-scale battlefield and this is what's going on. And then you might have your micro bite-sized moments as well, as like, in this specific region, this is what happens, like that. Some of these things might be hard to apply to a lot of games, a lot of game concepts. And that's why, the way I'm framing this discussion is sort of like, you didn't have a game idea before. It's like you're building a new game for esports specifically. It's just an interesting way to think about it, right? I'm not saying you should do this necessarily. Like, given that to get into esports is probably fairly hard, without a base already, right? So, because you need to, one, create a successful game, two, successful esport as well, right? Two things that are, might be a bit hard to do. But at least it's an interesting way of thinking about being able to generate new game design ideas. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say.
Yeah, and spoiler alert, not spoiler because I won't, I can't divulge any details, but well, actually, Nathan, is there a particular reason why this is on your mind?
Well, I don't know how much I can say.
Well, basically, there's an esports project that's being taken off the shelf at Ariella, which is going to be super fun. Details will come as I'm allowed to divulge them, which may not be for a very long time, but definitely gunning for some angel investment if I can get there on that topic. And Nathan is going to be the sort of game designer behind some of the things, and I'll just say, like, some of the principles he talked about are things that definitely apply to why there's a particular sport that we're looking at, essentially. So definitely challenges as well, but yeah, definitely gonna be fun. So if you want to join us on the journey, definitely got to subscribe and, I don't know, see if we end up talking about it in full disclosure. So there you go. Sweet. That's our show. That's it, right? Sweet. So this has been Mixed Media Monday. Still love the sound of that. This has been a Mixed Media Monday. If you like anything about the show, please tell us what you like in the comments. And if you didn't like anything about the show, especially tell us something in the comments that we could improve. You can be as mean as you want. I just want to hear how the heck I can make the show better for y'all. We're going to get some help on board from some of the people who are coming aboard on Ariella. And if any of you are listening, welcome aboard still. Yeah, we've got many platforms. If you go to mixedmediapodcast.com, you'll find all the platforms that we're on. We're on Twitch, we're on YouTube, we're on Rumble, we're on Discord, we're on, I don't know. I guess we're on Instagram, but I don't post there anymore. Excuse me. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher. That's how you say that. Stitcher, TuneIn, whatever the kids listen these days. We're there. We're on all podcasting platforms, so you can listen to us audio only while you're in the car without destroying your bandwidth, etc., etc. I especially recommend you join the Discord because we're having conversations on there all the time. And one cool thing about the Discord, and I think there's someone listening on the Discord right now. Doesn't happen very often. Hello. And you can listen to a audio only sort of stream. It's actually live time, so there's no delay like there is on Twitch or YouTube. So you can vibe with us a little more cleanly if you chat on there. And if you go to mixedmedia.locals.com, you can support us for $5 a month, and you can get a whole bunch of perks. Here, I'll throw them up on the screen real quick. Here it is. There it is. Those are all the perks you can get. If you're listening on audio only, it includes live whiteboard, guaranteed reviews of your work, and control over content, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So we've got two awesome supporters. Got to shout them out. 99 Crime and Rob Sharma. Thank you so much for supporting this project. Hopefully we're going to have a big boom soon. And thank you all for sticking by. We had a good chunk of people show up today, and really appreciate that because it brings some flavor to the podcast. So we'll see you next week at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time, Monday.
All right, thanks for listening and watching.
Bye.
Oh, that's the wrong. There you go.
Look, tell a man no trouble, I don't want beef, man, I just want vibes. Big man like me, no need for the telephone hype. I got too much getting online. One rule, then I'm on site.